So what we're going to do now is talk about isolated systems and what are the rules and what does it take for a system to be isolated. Because identifying the isolated system is the key sometimes to doing the problems. You can also just blindly do the problems and probably get it right, but if you know what the isolated system is, you'll do better. All right. Okay. So I would define it as this is not brief and nice. It's a collection of objects. I usually try to make these interesting. And interactions. Right, a collection of objects and interactions where every force, oh my God, where, yeah, this is so crappy I'm going to have to charge you for it. Every force has its reaction force within, if I could write them this bad, I'd write a textbook. Within the system, I'd be rich. Within the collection, I'm sorry, I didn't want to use the word in the definition. No, within the collection. Right, so we could say, was this an isolated system? Well, the bullet hit the sphere pushed back on the bullet, we ignored gravity and everything. So yeah, it seemed kind of like an isolated system. Let's look at a few others. Now we're going to modify this definition. We're going to add a parenthetical statement here later. But for now, let's just do this. Let's do two masses isolated in the universe. So they're out there somewhere, just floating along. There's no planets nearby. There's no gravity. There's no normal forces. There's no surfaces to land on. It's just sort of two things like this. So here's M1, object 1, and it's moving along, and in some sort of fate, some sort of romantic comedy kind of a thing, it's going to run into M2. What are the chances? It had to be fate, right? And then they're going to hit, right? Oh, that's like the sound. Oh, there's no sound because there's no air. Well, sorry. I'm not James Cameron. Okay? And then, what are we going to do? We're going to say, what's the deal? Let's see. They're going to hit. Oh, yeah. So we want to say, is it isolated or not? So how do we know? I would do a free body diagram and think about all the forces on each mass. Okay? So here's M1. When they hit, there's only one force. It's what we talked about over here. We have F of 2 on 1. Just practice thinking about your notation. And then we do free body diagrams on M2. And this one feels the force of 1 on 2. And they're isolated in the universe. I can't think of any other forces. That's really all there is. Okay? So, is this an isolated system? Yes. Isolated system. Sometimes people like to draw like a dotted line around it. Right? And say, this is everything in the system. All the forces are in the system. All the objects are in the system. So, isolated system. Okay? No gravity to worry about. Okay, so so another definition that might be good for you is third law reacts only is one way to think about it. Let's see.